The sidecar pattern is an architecture where two or more processes living in the same host can communicate with each other via the loopback localhost host. Okay, essentially enabling inter-process communication. One of the most use cases of sidecar pattern is actually the service mesh, such as Linkerd and Envoy, where a process or a container sits next to the application and the proxy is the request and enables logging, service discoveries, and a lot of cool features as well. And also it makes the client, the actual application, kind of like a thin client in a continually growing microservices architecture. In this tutorial, we will learn how can we use the sidecar pattern from scratch to decouple application logic into another process and communicate between two processes using the loopback localhost. This is coming up. What's up, y'all? This is Hussein Nasser from iGeometry, where we discuss software engineering by example, and this is the channel where we discuss tutorials, where we discuss new technologies, software engineering that particularly interests me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and give this video a like if you like it. And with that said, let's just jump into the video. So sidecar pattern. So in order to explain, before we jump into the actual tutorial and coding, we need to really explain a little quickly how we used to do things, right? Essentially, classically, and nothing wrong with that again, right, guys? This is just like another modern way of doing things. Okay, classically, we have an application.exe if you're on Windows, for example. And then your application, you gotta start referencing other libraries. Like, let's say here, I have another library, a DLL, or any other package in case of Python or Node. And you're referencing this package that's called logging package, right? And then you're using the functionality of this beautiful rich logging, right, logger. Okay, and then you have like there's some sort of a dependency here, so now you have to have this package, have this DLL in your application in order to work, obviously, right. So the sidecar pattern essentially what does is like splits those two into its own process. So what you do is essentially spin up your logging executable in its own process or its own container if you're using containers, and then that process will start listening on the local host, which is called the loopback port, like the host, and then on a specific port. And then what you do is essentially your application starts sending requests over TCP or HTTP through this loop back, right? So this essentially that's the sidecar pattern. And there's like a lot of disadvantages and disadvantages for this. I'm gonna reference a video that we did just explaining all of that. It's like I think 12-minute video explaining all about that. With that said, let's just jump into the video and do some coding. So what do you need? Visual Studio Code. I like to start my videos always from scratch. I don't believe in copy and pasting code, guys, right? So even if my video is like a little bit longer, I'm gonna put jump codes in the video so you can jump if you're like familiar with this stuff. But I want to use here, I want to use Node, okay, as an example. I'm gonna build an application like using Node, and then we're gonna split it up. All right, how about that, guys? So let's go ahead and create a new project. Let's call it sidecar demo, whatever, tutorial. Okay. And then that's my project, right? It's just a blank folder. Okay, we're recorded. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file called index.js, right? It's just a blank JavaScript file. I have Node installed. I have Visual Studio Code, which is a great editor. So what we're gonna do here is just like a really basic application, guys, right? So what I want to do is literally declare a number called number1. Okay, like I say 10, and I'm gonna build an application. What it does is actually logs, like, I don't know, maybe it takes the number, multiply it by itself, and then logs it. Okay, very basic application, right? So I'm gonna write a function called log, and that function takes a number. Okay, and then what it does is actually creates a message, for example, and that message will be, hey, your number squared is, and let's use these guys instead, num times num, right? Num. Great. So what you're gonna do is just console.message, right? Very simple stuff, right? And then what we're gonna do is like log num1, log num2, log num3. Let's just run this application and see what happens, guys. Okay, since it's a node application, we're gonna run it. We're gonna get an error for some reason. Num2 is not defined, obviously, because we didn't define num2 equal 20 equals num3 equal 30. How about that? That's better. Is this better, guys? Yes. Hey, your number squared is 100, 400, 900. Cool. That's a very basic application, and everybody understands it, right? So how can I apply the sidecar pattern to decouple the logging here into its own process? Obviously, this is a very basic, simple application, right? But imagine this logging is its own package that, I don't know, writes to a Postgres database or configure it to write to a registry, or you can use your own, I don't know, server or hit it on I don't know, Google Cloud or whatever, right? You can have all this configuration. So you want this to be separated. Okay, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna create another Visual Studio. All right, I'm gonna create another Visual Studio window, and I'm gonna open that folder, and we're gonna call this sidecar logging, right? So that's another project completely, and that's just for the logging part of it. Okay, all right, so we just open another Visual Studio Code window, and I'm gonna create another project, obviously another file here. I'm gonna call it logging.js here, just so I can know the differences here. Okay, so this is my logging sidecar process. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do here is, since I'm gonna listen, okay, what I want to use is essentially, we can use any web server here. We can use Express, for example. Okay, so let's go ahead and use Express. I'm gonna do a require Express, and then I want to create an application of Express, but I also want to use JSON as the method of communication. Usually what you want to do, you want to use something lighter, like I don't know, something like a protocol buffer, but this is just a tutorial. It doesn't matter, I guess, guys, right? So let's go ahead and use express.json. What I'm gonna do here is use app.use express.json, and that will essentially convert the body, right, to start accepting JSON requests. Okay, so with that said, what we want to do is obviously listen on a port. What is our favorite port? 8080 is one port we can use, all right? And then what we're gonna do is a console.log listening on port 8080. Very simple stuff, guys. Okay, this is simple stuff. We're listening on that port, and then what we're gonna do here is we need, since we're logging, we can use post here, right? I'm gonna use a post, right? So assume this is a log, so we're writing something, right? So I'm gonna use a post here, and then request response, and here is my function. What are we gonna do when someone makes a call to this server? What it will do is essentially what we used to do here, guys. So let's just go ahead and cut this and then paste it. Okay, but what we want to do here before we jump, we don't have this num, right? We don't have this number. Okay, so what we will do here is we will try to send that number through the body. Okay, and then I'm gonna do it this way, where const the number is equal request, which is the request where we're gonna send dot body dot number. So now we really need to send a JSON document that have a number object. Okay, all right, so now that we are expecting a JSON object, the JSON object should be like this, guys, right? The JSON object should be something like this, number, right? That's what the JSON object should be like. Okay, and that's what we should send. Okay, so now go back to the client, and what we're gonna do here is we're gonna declare a fetch API here. Just pull it up. It's called fetch node or node fetch. I forgot. Is it node fetch or fetch node? I forgot. I think it's called node fetch. All right. So that's the fetch API, which is also available by default in the browsers. Okay, the fetch API. I'm gonna reference the video that we did on the fetch API, which is pretty cool stuff, guys. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a fetch, and guess what? We are fetching on localhost 8080 because that's the port we're listening on, right? So obviously HTTP. And then here's the interesting part. We're gonna send an object. The object, first thing, the method is post. Why? Because that's what we're expecting in the process. Okay, so what do we do next? What do we do next? We need headers, guys. The headers are very important, and the reason is because you are specifying a content type, and the content type is application/JSON. Okay, and the reason is because we're sending out JSON as a body. Okay, and that's what is coming next, a body. Okay, so what is the number? We need to send up the payload here. The payload will be number, right? And literally just take the number that we send to that, and then that's my payload, and the payload goes here. But since we're sending over the wire, we need to stringify this. JSON.stringify. I can never spell this correctly. Thank God for autocorrect, man. All right, so now fetch is ready. That's the fetch. Obviously, this is a promise, so you can do then. Just do then. Since it says JSON, what does this sends back? That's the question here. Fetch, what does this send back? We're not sending anything back. So how about we send back just a success, guys? Right, let's do response to send. We're gonna send back a JSON. How about that? And I think we also need to stringify that, but let's try without it. Success, true. Okay, we're gonna just send that back. Okay, and that will be essentially a JSON. So just for fun, we're gonna stringify it. I think we should stringify it. I think that the method actually does that for you, but just in case. All right, so that's what we're gonna do here. There's a lot of code just to implement this sidecar pattern. This is part of the complexity which is the disadvantage, but the advantages is actually very good, guys. Right? Just the advantages of decoupling this stuff and make it its own process, so you can use any language to really communicate with this stuff. Right? Almost there. Almost there. What are we missing here? What are we missing? Okay, we fetch, then obviously takes a result .json because that's what I'm expecting. JSONize that, JSON, baby, right? And then if it's cool, just log the result, right? Catch console.error. How about that? Okay, guys, coolish. This is coolish stuff, I think. All right, so obviously we really need to initialize this thing, right? So let's do npm init, and then all done, right? It's like we're defaulting everything, guys, here. Okay, and obviously npm I, or you can do install node-fetch. Let's see if this is the right. Yup, nailed it. Node-fetch. We have to install node-fetch. Okay, let's go to the other side here. What do we need? The same thing. npm init. Done. All right, so logging.js is the default one. Thank God, man. It just like finds, hey, you have a login.js. So what we do here is npm install express. I think, guys, make sure to, if you want to use this, right, make sure, if you don't use this, by the way, if you don't add that line, you will get an error here. This will be undefined. This populates this. Okay. All right, guys. Let's see if this stuff is working, okay? Oh my God. Let's see. And we're listening on port 8080. So here, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna breakpoint, then I got breakpoint here as well. Let's do a breakpoint here. That's the beauty of Visual Studio Code editing, man. Oh, no error here. Let's go. Log. Oh, is it doing something? Hey, I don't think it's. Oh, there you go. We received it. Did we receive it? Do we receive the number? See, that's guys, right? Number 10. Do you see that? Let me zoom in so you can see it. Number 10. That's the object that we send. We send an entire object and we take the num, essentially, which is the object, put it there, log it. So now we should see it, and then we send back, hey, by the way, we're done. We cool. And then that's the second request, and that's the third request, right? That's just some async stuff, right? So that's the logging. Hey, your number squared is 100. That's pretty neat, guys. That is pretty neat. And since this is available for you, right, you can literally open the browser and makes a call, right? Makes a call to the same using the feature API, and literally, and you will be able to send that request as well. Okay, any process running on this machine can use the local host to basically ping this up and then use that rich library, which literally is one line of code that does that stuff. Okay, I know, guys, it's a little bit complicated, but imagine all the advantages that you get out of this, right? What do you get? The advantages, and I'm gonna list it for you here, guys. And I think I still have it here. There you go. That's the advantages. What you have is you're gonna decouple the thick libraries, right, and references. Anything that is thick libraries, your client will become thin, essentially. Right? You decouple that stuff, and the client focus on the logic, right? Application can evolve independently, obviously, right? Now I don't have to worry about logging, right? I don't have to worry about bugs about logging. It's just its own thing. Polyglot, right? Each sidecar application can be written in its own language. Now that I have this logger, right? I have this logger written, I can use Node.js, which we did here, to communicate, and I can also use Python to communicate. It doesn't matter, right? As long as I know how to make this call, which is this request, whatever you know how to make a fetch, which is like in Python, I think it's called request, right? You can make a request in Python, you can make a request in Go, and you can communicate with this beautiful library that you built. All right, guys, that was a long tutorial, guys. I know, but hope you enjoyed it. Give it a like if you like it, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Consider subscribing if you like this kind of software engineering. Dive in. I'm gonna see you in the next one. You guys stay awesome.